All right. Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here today for this press conference. I'm here today joined by my colleague, Leah Gazan, the member for Winnipeg Centre. Vancouver is the center of the universe for everything, but Winnipeg is really important. So joined by my colleague, Leah Gazan. And on Zoom, we have a couple of other peoples as well. Corey Balsam from the Independent Jewish Voices Canada is on Zoom. Celine Furry from Oxfam, Quebec is on Zoom. Alex Patterson from the Canadian for a Just Peace in the Middle East is standing here with me. And Sharif Awad from the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council is here with me. These are all advocates who have fought tirelessly to expose how Canada's permissive arms trade enables atrocities abroad. Their presence and moral courage bring us to the urgency of this moment, and I am grateful to stand alongside them. The introduction of my private member's bill today has been a long time coming, and the pressing need for it is essential. Just moments ago, I introduced my private member's bill in the House of Commons that will finally close a gaping loophole, one that stains Canada's reputation as a beacon of human rights internationally. We can no longer turn a blind eye to the back door by which Canadian arms are ending up in the wrong hands halfway around the world, contributing to gross violations of human rights and ongoing complicity of war crimes, especially after Canada signed the Arms Trade Treaty in 2019. For the past 23 months, the Liberal government has given Canadians half-truths and empty promises about arms exports to Israel. They say Canada respects international law. They say our export system is strong. But the reality is much darker than Canadian arms. But the reality is much darker. Canadian arms are still reaching conflict zones where they are being used in what leading human rights experts and the UN have identified as a genocide in Gaza. And how is this happening? Through a massive loophole that continues to be exploited. When Canada updated our laws in 2019 to join the Arms Trade Treaty, the government exempted all exports to the United States from scrutiny. That loophole has become a backdoor to Canadian weapons, components, and technologies. They cross the border unimpeded, with no permits, no oversight, and no reporting. And once in the U.S., they are built into weapons like the F-35 fighter jets and the Apache attack helicopters, systems then delivered to countries such as Israel and Saudi Arabia, where they rain down destruction on civilians. And let's call it what it is: complicity. For nearly 2 years, this government has allowed Canadian arms manufacturers to profit from the mass killing of civilians by exploiting the U.S. loophole. Ottawa knows it, corporations know it, and civilians in Gaza today are paying the price as the appalling images of atrocity show us with our own eyes. Canadians are rightly horrified that our policy framework allowed this to happen in such a brazen fashion, and it must stop. Recent reports by Arms Embargo Now, Project Plowshare, Amnesty International, they highlight the role of arms and components manufactured in Canada being used to commit human rights violations abroad. Canada cannot claim to champion human rights while quietly helping to arm a military that is bombing hospitals, starving families, and killing children. Every shipment that crosses the border unchecked, without transparency about its end use, is totally unacceptable. And we cannot allow it. We cannot allow this policy gap to persist when the consequences are so high. That is why today I introduce a private member's bill to close the U.S. loophole once and for all, and to build transparency into Canadian arms exports so we can restore integrity to the process and build a governance structure that withstands basic scrutiny. The bill will end Canada's complicity and bring accountability to the public. My private member's bill makes explicit that the Export and Import Permits Act includes parts, components, or technology necessary for the assembly of arms, ammunition, implements, or munitions of war. It will prevent the issuance of general brokering permits for military goods and technology if there is a substantial risk that the export or the brokering of the goods or technology could result in the violation of the Arms Trade Treaty. It spells out clearly that exports to the United States will have the same rules as exports to any other country: permits, risk assessments, and transparent reporting. No more exceptions, no more excuses, and no more Canadian weapons fueling war crimes. No more loopholes. This is not a partisan issue. The UN Human Rights Council, independent UN experts, and Canadian civil society have called for an end to the arms transfers that fuel war crimes or crimes against humanity. Parliament must answer that call. Canadians' credibility is on the line. Our values are on the line. And most importantly, the lives of innocent civilians are on the line. I call on all members of Parliament, no matter their political party, to support this bill. Because when it comes to crime, the crime is killing of innocent civilians. There can be no loopholes, no excuses, no silence, no culture of impunity, and no complicity. With that, thank you again, and my deepest thanks for everybody for being here today and for standing with me in the fight for justice and accountability. With that, we will now go to our next speaker. And Corey, I believe, is on Zoom, and we will go to you.
Thank you, Jenny. And good afternoon. My name is Corey Balsam. I'm the National Coordinator of Independent Jewish Voices, which is a cross-Canada Jewish organization that stands in solidarity with Palestinians and other oppressed peoples facing racism and military violence. I speak on behalf of our more than 2,000 members in 25 chapters and the many thousands of Canadian Jews calling for a total, immediate arms embargo on Israel. We thank MP Jenny Kwan for introducing this bill, which, if passed, would address the gaping blind spots in our existing legislation that allow Canadian arms, parts, and components to reach regimes like Israel that are committing wide-scale atrocities as we speak. The government has claimed to have paused direct permits for arms exports to Israel, but reality, of course, tells a different story. The Arms Embargo Now campaign has recently revealed nearly 400 shipments of military equipment that left Canada bound for Israel between October 2023 and July 2025, including nearly 500,000 bullets. On top of that, the US loophole allows over $1 billion of Canadian military goods to flow south each year, virtually unchecked, no human rights review, no risk assessment, and no transparency. Many of these Canadian-made parts end up in Israel's fighter jets, missiles, and drones that have taken an average of 90 to 100 Palestinian lives every single day for the past 2 years, including at least 18,000 children, which I know are being displayed. Their names are being displayed on Parliament Hill right now. Our tradition teaches us that saving one life is like saving an entire world. Right now, Canadian exports are being used to destroy human life, to destroy entire worlds. That's why we stand firmly behind this bill and urge every member of Parliament to do the same. It is a concrete, principled measure to bring Canada's export laws in line with the Arms Trade Treaty and ensure that every shipment, no matter its first stop or layover, faces the same rigorous human rights review. Let's end the charade, close the US loophole, and ensure Canadian military goods are never again used to commit atrocities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corey Balsam from the Independent Jewish Voices Canada. Next, we have Sharif Awad from the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharif Awad, and I'm here on behalf of the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. It's a policy organization that lobbies for protecting Canadians' civil liberties and advocates against systematic Islamophobia. CMPAC is very proud today to stand alongside MP Jenny Kwan and our civil society partners in supporting the No More Loopholes Act. This bill is urgently needed right now. Right now, despite Canada's current export laws, Canadian-made weapons and components are able to reach Israel, a state committing unimaginable atrocities and violations of international law amounting to an act of genocide. In particular, the U.S. exemption has enabled Canadian corporations to funnel unregulated arms to Israel, arms that to this day are being used to kill civilians in Gaza. In fact, more than 421,000 bullets have been shipped from Canada to Israel since the assault on Gaza began, including 175,000 in a single month this year. Despite public promises, shipments of Canadian-made weapons continued, even as bombs fell on homes, hospitals, and schools. This is unacceptable. For the Canadian Muslim community, this issue is deeply personal. Our community has watched in utter horror as family members, friends, and thousands of children in Gaza suffer under bombardment, displacement, starvation, and siege. Yet at the same time, our government continues to allow the export of weapons that fuel these very atrocities. Canada is not merely a bystander here, it is complicit. Every bullet that leaves this country risks piercing the body of a child, hitting a hospital, or destroying a home. Closing these loopholes is not only about compliance with the Arms Trade Treaty or even the Genocide Convention. It is about ensuring that Canadian Muslims, and in fact all Canadians, can trust that our country will not enable war crimes, genocide, or crimes against humanity. It is about whether Canada will be remembered as a nation that armed a genocide or one that stood up against it. Our communities want to see a Canada that truly, truly lives up to the values of justice and human rights. CMPAC urges all members of parliaments from all parties to support this bill that closes all the loopholes, to cancel existing arms export permits to Israel, and to commit to a full, transparent arms embargo. Canadians do not want the blood of Gaza's children on their hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharif. Next, we have Céline Furry from Oxfam, Quebec, who is on Zoom.
Thank you, Jenny. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. Je parlerai en français. Cela fait plus de 20 ans qu'Oxfam Québec travaille à ce que le commerce des armes du Canada ne serve pas à violer les droits humains, ni à amplifier les crises humanitaires. Avec d'autres organisations de la société civile, nous avons poussé sans relâche le gouvernement canadien à rejoindre le traité sur le commerce des armes, ce qu'il a fait. Mais cela n'a pas suffi. Nos obligations humanitaires et nos politiques commerciales demeurent en partie contradictoires, car la plupart de nos exportations militaires annuelles passent par les États-Unis, ce qui signifie, comme d'autres l'ont dit, qu'elles ne sont pas soumises aux mêmes précautions contre les risques de violation que pour le reste du monde. 2 poids, 2 mesures. Oxfam Québec n'est pas seulement une organisation canadienne. Nous faisons partie d'un mouvement mondial, Oxfam, qui depuis la Seconde Guerre mondiale répond aux crises humanitaires dans le monde entier. Nos collègues et nos partenaires sur place sont témoins directs des souffrances quotidiennes des femmes, des hommes et des enfants qui n'ont rien à voir avec les conflits armés, mais sont coincés dans les zones où ceux-ci se déploient. Leurs souffrances bien réelles sont causées par la violence armée, qui, elle, est largement alimentée par des armes et des technologies importées. Au Yémen, par exemple, le conflit armé qui dure depuis plus de 10 ans a plongé la population dans une crise humanitaire et économique dévastatrice. Plus de 18 millions de personnes souffrent d'une insécurité alimentaire aiguë. L'insécurité causée par les armes complique aussi l'accès de l'aide humanitaire, ce qui limite notre capacité, comme travailleurs humanitaires, à préserver des vies et des moyens de subsistance. Il est impossible et impensable pour Oxfam de fournir d'une main de l'eau potable, des articles d'hygiène, du soutien psychosocial ou encore du bétail aux victimes des crises, sans, de l'autre main, tenter d'éviter à la source les blessures et traumatismes, la perte de moyens de subsistance, la destruction des hôpitaux, écoles et routes et les déplacements forcés. De la même façon, il est impossible pour le Canada, qui finance chaque année un programme humanitaire plus vital que jamais alors que d'autres bailleurs se retirent, impossible de ne pas faire la même chose. Réparer et répondre oui, mais aussi contribuer à limiter en amont les dégâts des conflits armés. Nous avons maintes fois alerté le gouvernement canadien sur les risques importants de ces exportations militaires en lien avec les souffrances civiles que l'on voit. Les armes vendues à l'Arabie saoudite dans le cadre du conflit au Yémen ou celles envoyées à Israël dans le contexte des crimes de guerre à Gaza en sont des exemples. Mais ces actions ponctuelles ne suffisent pas. Tant que la loi générale qui encadre le commerce des armes du Canada restera incomplète, les contradictions persisteront. Le projet de loi déposé aujourd'hui par Mme Kwan est une occasion unique, celle pour le Canada d'assurer enfin une vraie cohérence entre son engagement reconnu envers les droits humains et le droit international et son économie. Une occasion aussi pour les Canadiennes et les Canadiens de savoir que notre pays ne contribue pas à la souffrance de milliers d'innocents à travers le monde. Merci.
Thank you very much, Merci beaucoup, Celine. Next, we have Alex Patterson from the Canadian for a Just Peace in the Middle East. Alex.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Alex Patterson. I'm a campaigner with Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East and steering member of the Coalition for Arms Embargo Now. Our coalition represents millions of Canadians opposed to Canadian-made weapons being used in Israel's genocide. We're grateful to Jenny Kwan for bringing the No More Loopholes Act forward in Parliament. We feel this bill is imperative at this moment of challenge for the global system of international law. As Canadians, we built the UN system on which international law and trade is based. One of our most famous prime ministers, Lester Pearson, was a leader in building the UN and developing peacekeeping. The fate of Palestine and Israel's wars with its neighbors defined the birth of the UN and Pearson's legacy. At this time, Israel's genocide in Gaza can also kill the UN and international law. Canada built this multilateral system to protect our shared values and interests with our allies. Canada has supported the UN and international law because it brings peace and order to the world and encourages good government globally. Canadian support for international law Canadian support for international law shouldn't have giant loopholes for Israel's genocide or Trump's complicity. That's why we need to ensure Canada finally adopts the Arms Trade Treaty in full. The Arms Trade Treaty is an essential part of contemporary international law. We want Parliament to support this bill and eliminate all the remaining loopholes in Canada's Export and Import Permit Act that allow weapons to be snuck to Israel to fuel their endless assault on Palestinian civilians. This bill, though, is more than about Palestine. It's a simple question about what system and what values we will uphold here at home. The moral proposition is clear. Are we a Canada committed to a rules-based international order, Or are we a sidekick to two far-right states willing to arm them no matter what the body count? Over 60,000 confirmed dead in Gaza. It's time for Parliament to choose. What side are they on? No exceptions, no loopholes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. We're now opening the floor for questions.
Ms. Kwan, obviously there are many issues with the U.S. right now when it comes to trade. Have you spoken to the government about this, and how do you envision balancing doing something like this, which obviously would very likely upset the Trump administration, balancing trade and other issues that Canada is dealing with right now with the Americans?
Well, thank you very much for that question. The bill was just tabled probably about half an hour ago or so. I will be starting to engage with different parliamentarians from all sides of the House about support for this bill. I know one of the issues that people will say with the current tariff war with the United States, how will we deal with this? The truth of the matter, of course, is this. The Canadian government already says that Canada abides by the Arms Trade Treaty. In fact, they would persistently refute the fact that arms and weaponry and parts have been exported and being used in various regimes, including Israel in Gaza, with the genocide that's going on right now. But if the government takes the view that they are abiding by the Arms Trade Treaty and the commitment is to honor the Arms Trade Treaty as they have committed in 2019, that would mean then that the exports coming from Canada to other countries would not violate the Arms Trade Treaty. And that should include the United States as well. If, in fact, there are no violations happening going through to the United States, this will have no implication for them whatsoever and will have no change with the exports. If, on the other hand, that this is in violation of the Arms Trade Treaty, and if, as we and civil societies have pointed out, that we believe that it is in violation, then we must close the loophole. Then we must honor our own commitment, and the government must honor their own commitment to the Arms Trade Treaty. That's what this bill is asking for, asking the government to obey the law and to make the law clear so that Canada is not complicit.
My follow-up questions for Mr. Patterson and others, if you'd like to chime in on this, I'd like to hear your thoughts as well. The Prime Minister is headed to the UN, where Canada is expected to recognize Palestinian statehood next week. What do you make of the conditions that Mr. Carney has set out, and what do you expect and hope will happen at the General Assembly?
Recognizing Palestinian statehood will end up being symbolic and meaningless if Canada continues to arm the genocide of the Palestinian people. You can commit a genocide in a recognized state. I think the thing that we're trying to talk about here is that the most important thing for Canada to do in this multilateral system now is end its complicity in the genocide and then implement different types of policy and acts that can actually end the genocide. So this act, the No More Loopholes Act, is what is necessary to end the U.S. loophole, which allows the majority of Canadian arms to get to Israel, which then can be used in Gaza. And then once that type of complicity is ended, then the recognition of a Palestinian state would make more sense. But the Carney government's doing it backwards.
Maybe Khalid, he's the head of CMPAC. Khalid, would you like to take this question? Okay.
No?
Oh, he's here. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Talk about the same question about the Palestinian state recognition?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. The voice that you received was quite unclear. So basically, is it a commentary about Palestinian state recognition at the UN?
Yes, just your reaction to that and how you think it will go forward.
Yes. So we, as Alex mentioned, the recognition of the Palestinian state alone is not enough or adequate. We are dealing with an ongoing genocide where 80 to 100 Palestinians, mostly children and almost entirely civilians, are killed every day. And many actions need to be taken, and recognition is one symbolic action that has to be coupled with other meaningful actions. The loophole, closing the loophole act, is the first thing that we all agree to commit to. And then also Canada can lead actions at the UN level, basically to signal to the Israeli government that they have to end the genocide. And there are a whole lot of suggestions in whether diplomatic actions or trade actions as well that should accompany the Palestinian state. There is no path for peace without actions that aim to end the genocide.
Can I ask Jenny, Leah, and everyone else, anyone who wishes to comment, the government just not too long ago tabled a hate crimes bill. One of the things that it does is it makes it illegal to intimidate or obstruct people entering places of worship, which includes synagogues, mosques, community centers, anything like that. It also included provisions against the quote, willful promotion of hate through the display of government designated terror groups symbols. I'm just wondering both the NDP's reaction and also as Muslims, but also people here advocating for the Palestinian cause, what you think about legislation on this. Happy to take all of yours.
Well, thank you for that question. Our critic on that file is Laurie Ickloud as the justice critic. So we're going to, as the NDP, defer comments to our colleague Laurie. So we will not be commenting on the bill at this point.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Would you like to comment? Or?
Did you want to?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, if you want to, but
So with regards to the newly introduced bill, we've made several public commentary since the introduction of this campaign promise of the Liberals early off, and we clearly said that the Muslim community does not view this bill as a bill to protect worshippers. We view this bill within this context of the ongoing genocide in Gaza as a political gesture from the liberal government. It does not offer any additional protection, as we see, that exists in the current law. And at the same time, we are definitely pro-protection of our places of worship and Jewish places of worship and all places of worship. We also refuse the assumptions that pro-Palestinian protests are basically meant to intimidate the Jewish community. They are entirely directed to end the genocide in Gaza and basically asking the government to take the right steps. So a bill introduced in this context is not meant for protection, and there are many other ways that the government can take to de-escalate the situation, to reduce the tension, to actually fight Islamophobia and anti-Semitism in means that does not require this kind of legislation that limits our rights and freedoms.
Can you repeat the quote that you read out?
So there was the stuff that was in the campaign promise, the obstruction, intimidation of places of worship and that stuff, but there's also provisions of against displaying the symbols of, there was Nazi imagery and then also any symbols of government designated terror groups, but only in the case of willful promotion of hatred. The Justice Minister couldn't provide examples of what exactly. He said it wasn't a blanket ban, but it has to meet the bar of willful promotion of hatred. And so I'm just curious if you have any reaction to that.
All I'll say is I think that the government is dealing with this situation using end of the pipe thinking. I think what would calm domestic tensions the most would be the elimination of Canada's complicity in the genocide. But I also will never agree that it is the pro-Palestine movement is the one causing the rise in anti-Semitism, given we're seeing the rise in Islamophobia at the exact same time. It's there's white supremacist forces that are capitalizing on this conflict and using it as an excuse, and then there's a pro-Palestine movement that's trying to end a genocide, and those are two separate things. And this bill that we're presenting here today is a human rights-based approach to ending Canadian complicity in the genocide. I do think that the government could take a more deep view of laws that they could bring in. I think one of the reasons that this legislation has been asked for is because there have been community incidents where there have been the sale of settlement properties in religious institutions, in this case synagogues, and the government has refused to use the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act and actually enforce it. So this is another part of their pattern of not using the tools of international law that they have here. So this bill is addressing one little part of that issue, which is trying to ensure that the Arms Trade Treaty is effectively used at a domestic level to end Canadian complicity in the colonization of Palestine.
Jenny, as the immigration critic, I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on the government banning the Irish band Kneecap from entering Canada this morning. Obviously, they've attracted some controversy, but they say they're being silenced for being against the war in Gaza. So could you comment on that?
I'm going to actually suggest that we keep our questions for this press conference central to the bill. I'll be happy to answer questions afterwards, but for the press event and for the purpose of our press conference, I would ask that we sort of keep on the topic of the private members' bill on closing the loopholes.
Does anyone else want to reference that? Anyone on Zoom want to talk about Kneecap at all?
Sorry, I'm going to suggest that we focus on the loopholes.
I'm happy to talk about Kneecap in the hall.
All right, so maybe we can do that in the hall. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. If you want to talk, this is the location to do that.
Sure, I'll do a Kneecap thing.
Sorry, I'm just going to clarify one thing, because we're always told strict as rules around time. All right, cool.
I'm gonna go no comment on Kneecap for now.
Sorry. Because we're always...
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci. C'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.
Merci beaucoup.